this a visual representation of the political situation out of public safety?
President, vice president.
No, to get the left wing and the right
It's
wing.
my IT folks. I can't have them both beside each other.
Yeah, we have to be geodiverse.
All right, so I'm going to talk about Next Gen 911 basically today, and how GIS fits into that, and then how the county needs to work with municipalities, the region, and the state to move forward with this project. Because really GIS is just like a big, and mapping is just like a big jigsaw puzzle. We need to fit all the pieces together to build a bigger picture. So we'll talk about all the different elements of that, what we need to, what's required for Next Generation 911, how we get there, and really the message going forward that we're working with people. So there's been a lot of action in the last 6 months really going forward with Next Gen in the state. PEMA has adopted with the 911 board, adopted the GIS strategic plan. NENA has come out with their GIS data model for public review. It's not going to change very much from the public review model, but NENA now has standardization for Next Gen and a GIS data model for that's really critical because now we have a standard that we can all work towards, and I'll show you later why standardization is a big issue with GIS currently.
Justin?
Yeah.
Other than one of three Columbus's ships, what does NENA stand for?
NENA stands for the National Emergency Number Association, right?
Correct.
All right.
And are they affiliated with FEMA? They
I
standalone?
don't believe so. They're a standalone organization,
Yeah, they are.
and they're basically the primary 911. What is it? Oversight standardization
911 standards
for the nation.
All right, nothing to do with Homeland Security and IST?
No.
Okay.
So the state PEMA's also put out an RFI. They're going to be releasing an RFP soon for a remote sensing contract. I'll talk about that a little later. And they're currently working on an implementation plan for the EZNet, putting out the statewide EZNet, the Emergency Service IP network, that is going to host the call routing and really be the transition from enhanced 911, which is using the telco switches to get the 911 calls, to the PSAPs. Now they're going to be having the statewide EZNet that's going to be routing calls. And the PA also has a state geospatial board. They're working on a strategic plan that's trying to align Next Gen goals as well. So the role of GIS in Next Gen 911. I'm going to talk about how GIS is a part of all of this, even though you only see it right here. This is from the PEMA 911 plan. So I'll get into that. So call routing. This is a nice visual that I like to use for just talking about Next Gen 911. So here we have our caller, and here we have our telephone company, our service provider. And here we have our EZNet and our PSAP. So the big difference between our current system and Next Gen is that EZNet is, in the current system, the EZNet is really the telco switches. But in the next iteration, it's going to be a statewide emergency service IP network in Next Gen. So we have our caller. The caller calls 911. It goes to the service provider, Verizon, Sprint, whatever. And the service provider is going to pass along a packet of information called a PIV flow. And it's the presence information data format application object. It's basically passing along the civic location or the XY coordinate. And that then goes into the EZNet, which is going to be PEMA's going to select a vendor. And that's really what they're working on now. They're working on the implementation plan that will be set in place so that in the coming year they can select a vendor to build the statewide EZNet and the emergency call routing function. this emergency call routing function will consume data from the spatial interface, and that spatial interface is being built with county data. So we have our county data going into a spatial interface that's being queried by the emergency call routing function, that's getting the location information from the service providers, and then they're routing that to PSAPs. So we can come back to that. It is a rather complicated system, but that's what Next Gen 911 is going to look like. So, building the ESNet. This is an image from the Pima IP network implementation plan. It shows the current state of the ESNet. Here we have our South Central region. We have our SCTFnet, and we have a microwave system here. Some other counties have fiber optic, or some other regions have fiber optic. And Pima's utilizing their 15% project funding to focus on regionalization and interconnectivity. They're spending millions of dollars a year to help build this internet right now.
Just a quick question. Is you said microwave, is that the same microwave you use for? Is it
No, it's its own microwave, bought and designed and implemented by the South Central Task Force. But it's for use by all the South Central counties, and actually is interconnected to other task force regions. And we're currently hooked up with GIS, so Justin's able to share GIS information with other counties within the region.
Yep. So this South Central net is going to be then built upon, and they're going to build a statewide network upon our region as a unit. So these are the planned statewide connections. You can see the difference between the two. They got a lot of building to do, and the ESNet's going to be the backbone of the next generation core services that we're talking about, like the ECRF, the emergency call routing function, which really is the GIS element of Next Gen 911. So, when I was talking about standardization, the big challenge is currently that we have across the state there are 20 different CAD vendors, and that means that there are 20 different GIS standards for the data that's going to be CAD. So we have Securus in Cumberland County. Right now, we probably share the same GIS standards with Perry County, Fulton County, and that might be it. So that's the challenge, is if we're going to build a statewide database, GIS data set for routing calls, it all has to be in the same standard, or else we're trying to build, Legos and Lincoln Logs. Doesn't work. And really one of the end goals with NextGen is that backup dispatching can be used between counties, so that if Cumberland County's PSAP goes down, Cambria can be a backup dispatcher. There's a lot of challenges with that, and GIS is a very minor one. So that's really an end goal of NextGen. There's a lot of operational things that have to happen. QA/QC of the data set. We have to ensure that this GIS data set is a public safety grade system, so it has to go to the 5 nines, they like to say, 99.999% accurate and reliable. So there's a lot of operating procedures and technical standards that need to be in place. So we talked about the NINA standard before. The NINA GIS data model is designed to meet these public safety grade specifications. And Pima has already adopted the NINA GIS data model standard so that we have a framework moving forward to work off of. So in NextGen 911, there are required layers. Those required layers are roads and boundaries. The road center lines have address ranges with them. That's currently how we dispatch in our CAD system, with roads with address ranges. And those roads with address ranges will then say if we're looking for 123 West Main Street, it'll find 123 West Main Street along the road segment, place it here, and then that point will then query down what polygon is it in, what polygon is it in, what firebox is it in, what municipality is it in, what jurisdiction is it in. So really the required layers are road center lines, address ranges, and boundaries. So we get our points and our polygons. And then moving forward, we'll continue to develop the data sets that we have address points and municipalities. They will be very soon, if not deployed with roads and boundaries, they'll be coming very soon afterwards, because those are also critical layers. They're highly recommended in the NENA GIS data model. And one of the key steps is to align your GIS data set with the current ALI database, the ALI MSTAG. So that's the ALI MSTAG. Well, I'll just go through what the real difference between Enhanced 911, our current system, and Next Gen 911 is when it comes to call routing. So currently, the way our current 911 system works with call routing, we have an MSAG and an ALI. The MSAG is the Master Street and Address Guide, which the county maintains, and the ALI, which is the Automated Location Information, which the telcos maintain. And these are generally very, very similar. There might be a very few exceptions, but these are generally the same database. And it's a location table. It's just a table. It's just a table with no spatial information that says we're in Carlisle and Main Street has a range of 1 to 1,000. That's what the table looks like. And they use that to route calls, 911 calls through those telco switches. That's how they get the call to our county. In the Next Gen 911, the emergency call routing function, with this packet of spatial information that the telcos are going to pass along, queries through a GIS, a geospatial database, to route that call through an IP network. So instead of a telco switches, we're using an IP network. Instead of a location table, we're using a geospatial database. And instead of the telcos being responsible for this location information, it's the counties feeding into a statewide spatial interface. And instead of the telcos being responsible for the switches, what it seems like the current idea is that PEMA is going to have a select vendor build out this IP network. So the whole idea is then and we've already done this in our county. We've gotten the ALI database from the telcos. We've done a GIS match against it, and it's well over 98% matching, which is the NENA recommendation. And we're going to be leveraging and currently we already have many counties throughout the state have very sophisticated GIS data sets that are being used in their PSAP CAD systems to validate, to map locations, and determine response areas. So let's just leverage, or the plan is to just leverage the data that's already being used in the CAD systems and leverage that for call routing. So this is from a survey that was put out by the GIS pros last year. And I have a couple, whenever you see a graph like this is from a survey that GIS pros put out to the county with 46 out of 67 counties responding. And one of this question is, what data source do you use to map address points? And that could also be used, what data source do you use to map road center lines or parcels or whatever? What are you using to map? Here we have 75% of the counties came back and said imagery. We use imagery the most to map. 70% said they use parcels, which is another great data source. I mean, to map address points, we use our parcel layer quite a bit. Parcel layer is it's probably the greatest, the most developed, has so much information in it. The parcel layer is just a great tool for making GIS data. And then we have GPS on-site mapping. So these are really the three main tools we have in our tool guide for mapping. We have imagery with parcels and GPS on-site mapping. So this this is a screenshot from our CAD system. There's a couple things we've added for labeling purposes. So in our CAD system, we have roads, emergency service zones. We're going to be utilizing address points soon, and municipalities. And they're all built together. The road center lines are built with the municipalities. And the emergency service zones are built with the road layer. They're all connected, they're all built together. So we just can't, hire somebody to make a road layer for us for the state. We have to use this county data because the county data was built to be used with all the other layers that are in the system. So here we have North Hanover Street, here we have Carlisle Barracks, North Middleton, Carlisle, and we have all these roads here, see here are segmented. At each intersection, we have its own one segment. Here's another intersection, you have a segment. And you can see that there are, the municipality line is drawn right along the road center line. And this road center line is also acting as a boundary for the fireboxes. We have firebox 38, separated by North Hanover Road. On the other side is firebox 45. And we have address points here in the green, we have parcel lines, we have common places. There's El Dorado Restaurant, Church of God Home, and all these data sets are built and integrated with one another. And I guess I'll talk right now about the next iteration of GIS. So we're looking for throughout the rest of this year, we'll be working with Securus to build a GIS upgrade onto our XCAD system. The current XCAD system, or the current GIS system for our CAD, uses shapefiles, and that's not really an enterprise solution. Right now, we have an enterprise solution with in the county. That's what we use in GIS. That's how we publish out our map services. That's how we have our property mapper is publishing map data from our enterprise solution. It's a really slick system. Right now, our CAD system is consuming shapefiles. So we have to take our enterprise data and export that into these shapefiles, and these shapefiles then have to be indexed to then be updated. And it takes hours for the indexing to run. And so that really limits our updating time. So we don't really, our update cycle right now in our CAD system is basically every 6 weeks we update our mapping. And we could update more regularly, but we can't update too regularly because indexing takes 4 hours. And that's really limiting how quickly we can update, because you really would only want to update maybe once a week. You can't update more than that with a 4-hour indexing system. So hopefully when we get to our enterprise system and our CAD system for GIS, we'll be publishing map services. Those map services then will be consumed by the dispatchers and by the mobile users. So it's going to be a scalable solution. We're going to get rid of having individual licenses. We'll be able to just push it out to more and more mobile users and not have to worry about how many users are using the system.
I mean, as compared to like Google or whatever it is, what are we using now?
As far as mobile,
Yeah.
we aren't using any map at all right now. We're waiting until we put this solution in place. That's like a phase 2 of silent dispatch.
Are we using Google Maps for something else in the 911 center?
Just for general use, but nothing.
Yeah. Sometimes I even use Google Maps when I'm in my office to help me map. It's really it's a really strong thing to look at. So another key requirement of Next Gen is sharing the data. So we've really tried to define a data dissemination solution. How do we get this data? How do we get this data out? And then how do we put it together? So we need to aggregate local authoritative data sets. Those are the county GIS data sets that are being used in CAD systems today. We need to transform that data into the NEMA standard. I'm missing a step here. We need to do some QA, QC on that data to ensure that it's public safety grade, or there's ensuring it's public safety grade. We need to compile the data into a statewide GIS data set, so it can be used for statewide 911 call routing. We got to store the data with an updating function. We need to take that data then and put it into the spatial interface so that it can feed into the emergency call routing function for 911 call routing. And then, last but not least, this road data, this address point data, has a tremendous use in the secondary market. I mean, we might not want to share our fireboxes with everybody, but there's no reason to not share with everybody our road center lines and address points. So that can really be leveraged by many other users across the state. And then we'll have a way to report discrepancies in this public safety grade data set that's being used for emergency call routing. A way that PSAS can report discrepancies in the location validation function back so that they can then be corrected. And like I said before, sharing this data to secondary users has tremendous benefit for economic transparency and efficiency.
Justin?
Yeah.
Some of those secondary users could be commercial or for-profit enterprises.
Sure.
Is there a way that we could make money off of that? If they're going to use our information that we
Right.
develop and no cost to them to make
Right.
money for themselves?
Right now, that is one of the primary issues being discussed at the state geo board. That we need to get away from the idea that we can make money off of this, because that it really is not. The amount of opportunity for economic benefit far outweighs the money that we collect. So last year, Franklin County actually tries to do this, tries to get, squeeze pennies out of their GIS data set. And last year they collected $12,000 from their GIS data set, which, I mean, that's gonna pay a fourth of somebody's salary, or a third. The state geo board is going to be coming out next year, hopefully, with their strategic plan to really identify the economic benefits of sharing the data over, trying to reimburse costs through selling the data. So there's a timeliness requirement of the state.
Justin,
Sure.
let me ask you a question
Sure.
along those lines. Is some of this funding to pay for this coming out of 15%?
The development, yes, so,
Well, you have the geospatial board, I understand that.
Yes.
And that's separate. Is there gonna be another funding stream from the state to pay for the statewide GIS,
okay, so
or is this coming out of 15%?
we have to build this data dissemination solution here. And building that is, I'll get into that a little bit more later, but that will be from the 15%. Building the solution is gonna come from the 15%. And then maintaining that solution probably will come from the 83% funding for the sustaining PSAP costs.
We can talk about that.
Yeah, there's gonna be significant costs, but, I don't think that the costs for the GI solution are gonna be anywhere close to the cost for building the ESENet. I mean, those astronomical costs for building the ESENet aren't, GIS isn't gonna come close to touching what those costs look like. So the timeliness aspect of this, getting accurate data into the system and updating it. So we have to, currently NENA recommends a 5-day update cycle in Enhanced 911, and they're going down to a 3-day update cycle with Next Gen 911. And currently there are 25 counties throughout the state that update their CAD system with GIS data at least every week. So they're really in position, about 25 counties out of the 67 are in a really good position to make this switch from a workflow perspective of getting these address changes into GIS edits, moving to CAD, and then Next Gen pushing them to spatial interface upload. So I like to think of this as a pyramid because at the bottom you have lot more than you have at the top. So we have local authorities, we have municipalities in charge of addressing. And even in those counties where you have county-controlled addressing, those municipalities are still in charge of road naming. And then you have your emergency response chiefs. You know, how many chiefs between police, fire, and EMS do we have in the county? So we have thousands of emergency response chiefs throughout the state. We have thousands of municipalities addressing, or at least naming their roads throughout the state. And that information, like even the fire chiefs. The fire chiefs work with us. I mean, we print out maps, and the fire chiefs then draw on those maps and say, we want our firebox changed this way, and then we have to work with those fire chiefs to get that information back into the county database. So here we have our county data stewards collecting and aggregating and mapping all this data that's coming from the local authorities. And then that county data from, the PEMA calls them the data stewards, must go into, has to get up to the state IP network for call route. So we have a regional aggregation to compiling and publishing these data sets so that the state can then collect maybe 9 regional data sets into their spatial interface call route.
Justin, are you a data steward? County maintains the best GIS data. Does that fall under you?
That would, yes. As the way PEMA describes it, it would be our GIS department, because we're currently creating the data that goes into our CAD system.
Just a quick question along those lines. Are you bringing on any interns this summer?
Yeah, our intern started at the beginning of June.
Okay, I vaguely remember, I think you were
Yeah.
here yesterday. Okay.
She'd be here, but she's on vacation.
And they help on those last,
Yeah, right now, so we talked about how do we map imagery, parcels, GPS. After she gets her feet wet a little bit more, she's going to be going out into the county and GPS and stuff for us. Basically, because me and Patrick don't have time to get out there in the sunshine and do our field work. So she's going to be a big key asset as an intern, helping to do some GPS mapping for us. Okay, so whenever you see one of these asterisks, that denotes a challenge. Well, we'll call them a challenge. So municipalities, what's municipalities' role? Like I said before, municipalities have that road naming authority, even if they don't have that addressing authority, which the addressing authority can be acquired by the counties through ordinance. Municipalities report building permits, and like we said, at the local level, we have our local chiefs. So some of the challenges.
Just for clarification,
Yeah.
Justin, technically, the municipal elected officials dictate the response coverage
Okay.
for their designee, which a lot of times is the fire chief or fire administrator. But we have letters on file, if it is the fire chief, to dictate that box response or box fire box. So I just didn't want, but
Okay.
that is officially the elected officials are responsible for the response selection.
Okay. So some of the challenges with, at the municipal level, we have neighboring municipalities can have conflicting numbering schemes. And that will cause issues with the NEMA standard. We have road naming and numbering issues that can be decades old, that cause issues in some cases. Some cases are minor. Some cases those issues are only with people trying to find a house. It might not be a problem in the system, but it might be a problem with somebody who's trying to, an ambulance driver who's trying to find this address. Just because they can't, what they're seeing on the ground isn't really standardized to what they're anticipating. Numbering scheme, road naming scheme, what have you. So this is a snapshot from our survey of who's the authority that assigns addresses. In Cumberland County, of course, we have municipal assigned addresses. And from what we see, it's really cut into thirds. A third of this county has county-controlled addressing. A third of the county has municipal. A third of the state has municipal-controlled addressing, and a third of the state has a mixture of county and municipal-controlled addressing. So in some cases, like in Lancaster County, they have, I think it's like half of their municipalities let Lancaster County address for them, and then the other half of the municipalities address for themselves. And then in York County, they have 67 addressing authorities. So we're kind of lucky we only have 33 addressing authorities in our county. But there's that coordination aspect. We have to coordinate those addresses with our municipalities. We have to get them into the system, and we have to do it in a timely manner. Which is more and more of a challenge when you get into the next gen environment. So at the county level, this is just a quote from the GIS strategic plan that FEMA published and the board adopted, basically outlining data stewards are the counties, and the counties need to supply that data in support of Action 911. And a lot of counties have very sophisticated GIS data sets and systems. Some counties don't. So there are counties throughout the state that don't meet the quality standards. A lot of counties don't meet the workflow standards. And we're really looking forward to an inventory of these GIS data stewards. You know, FEMA says we're going to rely heavily on these data stewards. We need an inventory of what these data stewards have, what they're capable of, and what they're currently doing. So that will be coming through FEMA hopefully soon. So, another question from our survey: who produces the GIS data sets that are going into your 911 CAD system? 90% of the responders say it's coming from a county data source. So the counties are producing the data that's going into their own CAD systems. And then this is the real question. This is the big one. How often does your GIS data get updated in your CAD system? So here are those 25 counties that have daily or weekly updated to their CAD system. We are right about here. We're every 6 weeks. And we hope that after we get this enterprise upgrade in our CAD system for GIS, that we'll look at what we can do through our workflows to get that closer to here. So you can see there is 3 counties that responded. They update their GIS yearly, their CAD system. And this is just a really good correspondence or a corollary to, if you're updating your CAD system yearly, then you probably have, that's probably where your workflows are to support yearly updates for your GIS. So if your workflows can only support a yearly update, that's not really going to cut it next gen when your call routing is based on the geospatial database.
Justin, can we say that, or is it true, that the size of the county, population-wise, correlates with the frequency of their updating, or is it just a simple policy decisions?
It can be policy. A lot of times it's funding. Lycoming County is Lycoming County is daily replication into your CAD system. I mean, they're way ahead. It's Barry Hutchins is just he's very in tune to the in tune to 911 and the future needs. So he's developed a system where they have daily updates in Lycoming County.
Well, for somebody like Philadelphia, Pittsburgh.
Yeah, they're here.
Okay, because it would be fatal if they, if they only did quarterly.
Yeah, and a lot of these represent change. If you're living in, I don't want to pick out a county, a more rural county, rural county, you might not need, the need for daily change isn't there.
So here's the question: at 6 weeks intervals, are we where we should be?
I would like to see closer to weekly. That's where I want to be, and that's where we're moving towards with the enterprise system. So once we get the enterprise system in place, we're going to look at how we can change our workflows to get closer to here. We don't know exactly what the needs are of the enterprise system yet. So once we see what those needs are for the enterprise system, we can see how much closer we can get here and throw workflow changes.
Justin, a good example would be the property mapper updates that you're doing more frequently now because they're now on the new geodatabase model.
Right, yeah, since that's a great example. Now that property mapping is running an enterprise system, it allows us to much more easily update. Before we had to go through conversions to get their data into the proper formatting and standards. Now it's just a matter of we have scheduled tasks now where it happens almost automatically. There are still some manual steps we have to go through, but that's we had updated the property mapper monthly before when we had to do all these conversions. Now they're in an enterprise system and we can update them weekly. Okay, so the region, going from the county to the region. We have regional work groups. This is our South Central region here. Franklin, Adams, Cumberland, Perry, Delphin, Lebanon, Lancaster, York. And our GIS working group has been meeting in our South Central region since 2005. And we'll get into what we're doing with our data sharing project. We have a pretty sophisticated data sharing project that's been very throughout the state. But what we're really looking forward to is a federated architecture. And that federated architecture really takes out those manual steps so that we can just share this data between semi-autonomous systems, decentralize, and have that take the data, aggregate the data, standardize the data, push out the data. Almost daily is what we're shooting for. But right now we'll get into exactly what the South Central region is doing. So Southeast is a little bit different. They have a lot more GIS staff to work on this stuff. Their task force gets a lot more money because it's Philadelphia. But they go through a process where they have a data sharing process. Let's just leave it at that. We'll go to what we're doing as a region. I'll spend a little more time about what we're doing as a region. So currently, the South Central region has a GIS sharing solution. We have a solution that takes our county data from all 8 counties, and we have a script that extracts that data and uploads that to an FTP site every month. And that's scripted now, it's a scheduled task, we don't do anything. It just takes the data out, puts it to an FTP site once a month. And then that file geodatabase that we put into the FTP site then gets put onto our SCTF server. So the South Central Task Force has a GIS enterprise that it owns and maintains. So then we go through a transformation process that we have scripted that takes all 8 counties, runs them through these scripts, and transforms them into GIS for the Nation. That's a data standard. We selected GIS for the Nation as a data standard 10 years ago, probably. This is going to need some work though, because we need to take this. We can't use GIS for the Nation as a data standard anymore. We need to use NINA as the GIS data model. So that's what we're going to work on. So we're going to need to rewrite these scripts so that they transform the data into NINA instead of GIS for the Nation. Then we create a new regional data set. Then we need to update the SDE with this data. This is one of those. This is another area where it's not technically federated because we have to stop the services and then rewrite everything. But then we rebuild our caching services, we rebuild our address locators, and almost all of this is scripted. So it's a very autonomous solution, and the region has built that. We've been using that. We've been enhancing it for the last 5-6 years now. So we do have a regional data set of roads, municipalities, address points, parks, parcels. It gets to be pretty big when you talk about all 8 counties and all the data we have in there. So what does Pennsylvania do? This slide might be a little different than I have updated the slide. So Pennsylvania has a strategic plan for GIS, and after they're done working on the IP implementation plan, FEMA will start working on the GIS implementation plan. The ESINet is getting a different implementation plan from GIS because GIS is just such a monster on its own where the state needs to go. And then after the implementation plan, we'll see systems plans for the GIS solution for next gen. FEMA is working on a remote sensing initiative. Hopefully for 2018, they'll be flying the whole state at 6 to 9 inches resolution, and we'll be getting that imagery hopefully a year after that, or within a year after that. So we hope to see 2018 imagery coming from FEMA, and then once we get that, then we'll have to reassess how the county currently acquires imagery, because right now we pay pictometry probably around $80,000 a year for getting the county flown every 3 or 4 years, and we'll have to look at whether the FEMA we'll have time before our next pictometry flight would have been scheduled, or before we're even done paying for this last pictometry flight, to see the FEMA data, and we'll be able to look at that, see if maybe that can cover us for our remote sensing needs. Because the FEMA flight is probably just going to be an orthophotography, just the top down, what you see behind you. Whereas pictometry provides us with those north, south, east, west obliques that lets us see the size of the building, how many stories it is, how many entrances, whether something's is a garage or a shed, which is really helpful for the assessors. So right now we pay for an imagery project that is better than what FEMA is going to be providing us for free, basically. So, but we'll have a chance before we're done with our pictometry contract to look at that and see where we're at as a county. And
Did they discuss at the geospatial board about having oblique imagery while they're doing it?
That is, they have not talked about that at the geospatial board. They're talking about just the first capture of ortho imagery, because flying the state in 1 year is a pretty aggressive goal, as it is. And they're just trying to get an ortho baseline, because Perry County just bought pictometry, so they do have pictometry now. But Mifflin, above Perry County, Mifflin County has been working on orthophotography from the last statewide flight, which was 2007. So this is just a really good initiative to get all the counties up to a baseline level. Get them ortho imagery, and ortho imagery is critical for GIS. It's helpful for assessment to have those obliques, but it's critical for GIS to have the orthophotography.
Okay, one other question. I thought at our recent 911 advisory board meeting, we talked about a 3-year
Yes.
plan.
Yes. So after 2018, and this is I'm just speaking from conversations with FEMA. FEMA will be releasing an RFP in the next month that hopefully will very specifically say what this remote sensing contract is going to look like. But currently the idea is that they're going to fly the whole state in 2018, and then in 2019 they're going to start 3-year cycles where they cut the state into thirds. So east, central, west, or west, central, east, or however they're going to fly it.
Right.
So then there might be an opportunity moving forward in 2019 to get more products, because we're only going to be flying a third of the state. Or in 2019, they might say, look, the whole statewide capture went so well, we're going to do another statewide capture in 2019. I'm not sure how that's going to look beyond 2018 right now. But the reason I really don't talk about this very much in this presentation is because remote sensing imagery, the imagery itself, is not functional in 911. It doesn't do any work like road center lines with address ranges, like emergency service zones or PSAT boundaries. Those are the data layers that do the work in 911. Remote sensing is very critical for developing those layers, like we saw before. What was the number one layer you used to build this data? It was imagery. You use imagery to build the other data that is functional. So we need that baseline capture across the state to help us build those functional 911 layers.
I did request at the Pima quarterly training, the coordinator meeting with the director, that they consider in the RFP, they're doing a buy-up for better resolution for the orthos, to also include an item for buy-up to include the oblique imagery. So when they're flying, they could fly and do obliques for the counties that wanted that and take advantage of a statewide bulk purchase. So
It is
I
gonna
don't
be-
know if they'll consider that or not, but
It is going to be challenging to accomplish this because, like I said, the statewide capture for 2018 is challenging because there's a lot of area to cover. There's only so many planes. The window is very short. You have only a couple of weeks between end of snowfall and beginning of leaf to fly. And if you're doing a statewide capture, you have to fly high and fast. You've got to cover as much ground as you possibly can. And that really precludes the opportunity for flying low and slow, which you need to do to get those obliques, or to capture LiDAR, which you have to fly at a lower elevation than which if you're just capturing ortho photography at 6 inch, you can fly high and fast, which is optimal if you're trying to capture the whole state. So we'll see what the RFP, how the RFP comes out and what the language is for the RFP. I don't envy the people writing these RFPs. This is going to be pretty complicated if they're trying to accomplish everything they're going to accomplish.
Just so we don't have, I mean, I think what we're trying to accomplish here is economies of scale.
Right.
You don't want every county doing their own thing, spending money, then the state spending money on top of that.
Right.
So, the more that we can do together, the better I think we're gonna be.
Absolutely, and we'll have more information on what Team is trying to do when the RFP comes out as a draft, hopefully next month. And then we'll have time to, after we get this imagery in hand, we'll have time then to take a look at it before our current pictometry contract is even up. So Pima had, at the last meeting and a couple weeks ago, Pima adopted their 2017 interconnectivity funding priorities. The two priorities on there were specifically towards GIS, regional GIS work group, GIS data sharing projects, which is kind of what I already went over, what the South Central region is working on. And then NINA standard, this is a little different from your handout. I did change this slide because Pima's been doing quite a lot recently. Pima's had a lot of activity. And then we have another identified funding priority is NINA standardized addresses and MSAG alley validation. So we do have a county address data points along with our address road center lines, and we have already done this portion. We validated our MSAG and our GIS against the telcos out. So we are we're already working on these projects independently outside of this potential funding stream. But in order to really sophisticate these systems, we may look at having projects that do take advantage of these funding streams for people. And the State Geo Board is also working to align goals with Next Gen 911. We're working on base map themes. I'm part of the State Geo Board's data program task force. So we're working at aligning these base map themes, which are like roads, address points, streams, elevation, buildings. Those base map themes, align those with Next Gen 911 goals. They're working on a data sharing model. How do we share this information? What kind of user agreements do we have to have? And then there will be a state GIS strategic plan coming out of the Geo Board, hopefully there should be a draft by August or September. So that's what Pennsylvania is working on. Tennessee is way ahead of us as far as GIS and Next Gen 911. They have a vendor at the state. So right now, Pima has a vendor too, Mission Critical Partners, but they're not specifically GIS. Tennessee has a GIS vendor, True North Geographic Technologies. They have a system where they have multi-user editing, and they have daily updates throughout the state to the statewide spatial interface, and they do a nightly QA. They have a board mandated system because they've had their schema before NEAN even came out with their GIS data model. They have address points, and it's pretty unique. I've never heard this before. They create their PSAT boundaries and their MSAC boundaries from their address points. So they take all these points, and then they have a process that draws polygons around the points. So automatically generate them. They have many of these counties in Tennessee are too small to have GIS professionals. You know, I would talk to one county that had 10,000 people and 10,000 population and didn't have a GIS person, so they had a dispatcher editing their data in the Tennessee system. And yeah, that's good. So Tennessee is a little different since they don't have municipal addressing. All the addressing is done at the county level. They don't do they don't have any regions either, so they have a kind of a simplified system where they're just having their counties push their data right to the state. So I've working with the GIS Pros. GIS Pros is an organization of county professionals that work in GIS, and I'm leading their Next Gen 911 subcommittee. We've been working on ideas of how to get to the standard. How do we get our data, which is in all these different standards because we have all these different CAD systems. How do we get this data into the NENA data model? And we've come up with basically 4 solutions. One solution is we can just outright adopt the NENA data model as a county. That's definitely something we're considering as a county, just adopting the data model. And we might just do that because moving forward, I talked to Securus, even last year, that I would like to see us just go to the NENA data model because we're going to go to the enterprise GIS system. Let's just move to the NENA data model. So that might just take out the need to transform our data into the NENA data model. As a county or a region, there's an opportunity to just transform your data, have a transformation process in place to change your data into the NENA data model. Now, like I said before, with our South Central region, we do have a process to transform our data into a standard. It's not the NENA standard. We're looking towards how we can get to the NENA standard. And then there's another option. We just maintain additional fields for the NENA data model. So we can have a field for our road names or our municipality names in our CAD standard. We can have a field for road names and municipality names in the NENA standard. And we type in one name, and we can have a system where it can automatically populate in the other field. So those are really the 4 ways that we thought of how do we get to the NENA standard, the schema. So in addition to the schema, which is what I've been talking about a lot, there's also the geometry aspect of GIS. We have a spatial aspect in addition to that table aspect. So these are examples taken from the road centerline layer that our South Central region. This is our South Central region's road centerline layer. So this is basically all the road data that's being put together from each county's CAD system. What are the road centerlines look like in each county's CAD system? And that's this. All the county's road system data being put together in one regional layer. So there are going to be geometry challenges as well when we start pulling your data together. So here you can see there's I don't know if you've ever taken a shortcut. There's a road that goes right down Susquehanna River. It saves a lot of time. But this is not an actual road, but this is a geometry solution that Dauphin County has put into their system so that they can dispatch for river rescue. Probably not going to work with statewide call routing. That might need to be addressed, and they might need to take that out or do something to mitigate that. Another challenge, edge matching. This is Turnpike, this is Lancaster, Lebanon, I think this is the Renaissance Fair right here. But the problem is that these roads don't actually connect between the 2 counties. And down here we have purple, this is Franklin, red, this is Cumberland. I'm sure you can just tell that this is Shippensburg County, Shippensburg Borough right here. Shippensburg Borough is split between counties, so this is the county line right here. And as you can see, we have red lines over top of purple lines. That's because Cumberland County dispatches for the Franklin, for all of Shippensburg Borough, right? So we maintain our road center lines for this part of Franklin County because we dispatch all of Shippensburg Borough. But of course, Franklin County maintains road center lines here as well because it's in Franklin County. So here we have probably 100 road segments that overlap road segments in Franklin County. So there's just these geometry issues that we're gonna have to start addressing. And that's where the southeastern region has been, is ahead of us. They have a solution where they go through and automate picking out these geometry issues. Whereas in our south central region, regional data sharing solution, all we're doing is really plugging the data together, putting it into a standard. Automating, taking that data from our enterprise systems, putting it into a regional data set. And we have not looked at these, how to solve these geometry issues from county to county. But we're going to need to. So timeline, PEMA, all these dates and times have come out in PEMA plans. So this is PEMA's milestones and PEMA's goals. So quarter 1, 2017, they want to have GIS staffing and a GIS implementation plan. That has not yet happened, but they are on schedule for the remote sensing initiative. 2018, they want to have a data storage and data dissemination plan. That's really critical as to how we're going to, this might actually be the GIS implementation plan. How do we take county data, how do we put it together, how do we get it out, how do we get it in the spatial interface, how do we populate the emergency call routing function. So that's really what that's going to cover. Perform a data assessment and a data steward inventory. Very critical. Where are all these counties at? Where are they at in being able to support next gen? Assemble a working group. Get a pilot going. This is also great. Let's get a pilot going for putting this data together and pushing it out to serve next gen 911. And then here, they also want to select that statewide ESINet vendor in 2018 to build the ESINet. So in 2019, they want to start reconciling all these edge matching issues, like those geometry issues that I was going over. 2020, they want to have a statewide address statewide address points data set. They want to be doing 100% IP call delivery. And this is really going to be, whenever you talk about funding in PEMA, this is going to be a huge challenge for them because if they're going to IP call delivery, there's going to be a time period in there where they're going to be funding IP call delivery and the current telephone switch call delivery system. And both those systems are going to be very expensive, and they have to maintain them both at the same time for some period of time. It'll be very expensive. Then we're going to have our GIS public safety grade data set deployed, and we're going to have real-time updating. That's basically for testing at this point. And then by 2022, we're going to deploy that functionally for use in the emergency call routing and location validation functions for call routing. So, last slide, the message. Whenever I talk to PEMA wants me to tell them what the value is, but there's also a cost. So, the cost is that these data stewards, the counties, are going to be expected to do more. We need to develop data dissemination solutions. Regionally, we're doing that by putting our data together. And currently, PEMA provides wireless reimbursement money for GIS services. So every quarter, we submit to public safety our GIS hours that we spend developing road layer, the address layer, emergency service zones, and those hours get submitted to public safety, then they submit them to PEMA for 911 wireless reimbursement through our GIS services. And that comes to somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000 a year for us. going back to the reimbursing salary costs. The value. So we're gonna have a statewide public safety location service. So this geospatial service is gonna be a public safety grade system. So it's not only gonna be used for 911, you can leverage it for emergency management. Then there's gonna be secondary uses as well. So the standardization is a very important part. Once we standardize our data sets, then we can move them and consume them much more easily. And we're gonna have locally sourced data. We're gonna get a lot more, we're gonna see efficiencies through our data sharing networks, the EZNet, and sharing our data through there. We're gonna have a federated architecture that does a lot of this stuff autonomously. We'll build it so a lot of this is an automatic process. And we're gonna, once we start the standardization and data sharing process, we're gonna be able to help each other a lot more. That's all I had.
So, Justin, right now you have 2 people
Yes, new Patrick.
and an intern,
Yes.
So why don't we need more people to do all this stupid?
Well, it's a good question. It would make sense to, after we get the GIS enterprise up and running in our CAD system, I would like to look at our workflows, and GIS staffing is probably going to be part of that, and see where we're at with, what we can do with what we have. And I plan to take a look at that once we get that enterprise solution up in our CAD system, and then we'll be able to see efficiencies through that, because we'll be able to update more, but then we're gonna look at how we can support those, how we can support more updates.
If you were to get venture guess, you say within a year, 2 years, 3 years?
To get to, well, where we, the trick is the NINA standard. How do we get the NINA data model? And then we're going to need to fix our geometry issues. But then the real trick is being able to update new addresses very quickly. And we have some limiting factors onto that. How quickly can we get addressing information from the municipalities? That's a limiting factor. And then how fast can we turn that around and get that data into the system? We're gonna have to work on our workflows. We're gonna have to button them up. And create good we're gonna have to actually create some documentation on how we get, because right now with a 6-week update cycle, we're not as stressed in our update workflows as we might be in next gen. So we're gonna have to do some more documentation on exactly how we get there as that cycle where we're updating, meeting that 3-day turnaround from new municipal address to that address being in the state spatial interface. It's gonna be a challenge.
But even now, like Justin, they do a good job with the updates, but we're sitting on updates sometimes for CAD for 6 weeks, and it's, pretty lengthy updates, 15, 20 updates of calls that, that we want those to validate whenever, if someone calls for an emergency in those areas, new construction, additions, deletions, commonplace names, things like that certainly aid if there's emergency calls to validate that address and tie to the correct response for resources.
Yeah. So and when we're talking about commonplaces, we also don't have a great handle on how we populate commonplaces. A lot of times we get a request from public safety to add this commonplace name, and that's how we'll add a commonplace name, instead of a more active solution where we are actively getting all these commonplace names throughout the county and then populating the system that way. So we're definitely looking forward to, with the enterprise system, to moving to a more timely update cycle with our CAD system, which will then be in place to help us support the next gen needs.
If you go to your slide about the schema, there you go. No?
Which one?
One is schema.
This one?
Yeah, so how are you gonna get to where you wanna be on this one?
Okay, so there's a couple options. If our CAD system, right now, our CAD system is kind of built with its own standard. Right now, I feel like we're using Securus's GIS standard. But if Securus would move to, I did put they asked me, I think last year, what do you want this enterprise GIS system to look like? And I put in there, well, let's use the NINA data model. So if we use the NINA data model, the new Securus, within Securus, then it just makes sense to adopt the NINA GIS data model as a county, because that's really what, we're maintaining our data for Securus right now. So if Securus adopts this data model, then all of our data will be in the NINA, we'll transfer all data into the data model. So that when we share it with when we share it with the region, we don't need to go through a transformation process. But in the meantime, or maybe before we get there, who knows? Right now, we are using this. We are using this aggregation process. Oh, shit, I can't touch it. We are using this aggregation data process at the regional level, the South Central Task Force. But we are transforming it into the GIS of the nation, just because we selected that data model well before NINA ever came out with their GIS data model. So at a regional level, we need to look at how we change our data solution that aggregates, it basically collects all the data, transforms the data, and publishes the data. We have a regional solution for that. But it doesn't use the NINA GIS data model. So we're gonna have to look at how we can change that for this.
So that's not something we can just do on our own, or is it something we can do on our own?
Getting into the NINA data model, it can be both. We could do it on our own if Securus adopts the NINA data GIS standard, because then it just makes sense just to do it on our own, just change our schema to meet that schema. If not, or in the meantime, we change our regional data sharing process to transform our data into the NINA data model, which we're looking at as well as a region, the South Central Task Force GIS work group.
Any other questions for Justin? Justin, thank you.
Sure thing.
Is there any other business to read?